With all the sweet treats and excitement over the holidays, your kids may be a little hard to control. This morning we have parenting expert Marty Calder here to talk about a great method to increase good behaviors. Thanks for being here, Marty.
Well, thanks.
All right, so we're talking about, you were saying, differential reinforcement. Tell us a little bit about that.
The idea is that that we learn by the differences in things more than the similarities.
Okay.
And so when you're talking to a child or they're teaching them how to do things, you're not talking about how a pencil or pen look the same. You're looking at how they look different,
okay,
or what they do differently. And the same kind of idea is for when you're trying to maybe stop a behavior for yourself or for your child. This is a great time. You've had some segments on about losing weight or exercising in the new year, and this is the same kind of principle.
Okay.
So there's a lot of technical terms, but there's kind of three ways that you can do it. There's DRA, which is an alternative behavior to whatever you're not wanting to do, and DRI, which is incompatible, something you can't do at the same time, or DRO, which is anything else besides that behavior. And then the last one is, I think for all of us that want to lose weight or do other things, is DRL, which is a low rate of responding. So we'll talk about that one first. So if you have a DRL, it means that you're going to reinforce yourself or do things that, like, you're trying to quit smoking, and so you usually smoke a pack a day, and so if you smoke one less cigarette that day, then you might get yourself something, or you might, treat yourself to reinforce that behavior. And the next day or the next week, you set up a kind of a schedule for yourself, and each day or each week you try to take that down a little bit more. And if you kind of make a mistake, you don't reinforce yourself, but you go on from there.
You know, last night I have a daughter that sucks her thumb. She's now 4. And so we went to the dentist recently, and he was telling her, I know you know what you're doing, but maybe just start thinking about stopping sucking your thumb.
Right.
So while we were at the house, she's sucking her thumb. She has her blankie, and I tell her, honey, stop sucking your thumb. And you can tell she's like, I just can't. She's like, I just can't do it. And I was like, why don't you try, like, holding your face? And even though that sounds ridiculous, and she kept, like, looking at me like, you are ridiculous, I feel like it's kind of along the same lines. Like, do something that kind of makes you feel, and I was trying to think of something that would make her feel comforted, maybe by holding her face or doing something, but it was hard. But that makes sense. It's kind of like, this is a hard example, but dogs and new tricks and things like that. It really makes a huge difference in the person's life.
And we've talked about reinforcement before, and I think this is where you kind of think about it more like you did. What can be similar enough for her as far as reinforcing enough, because it's got to be at the same level. If you've smoked for 50 years, you're not just going to be able to stop. You're going to have something that's as reinforcing for you. It can't just be, I don't want to do it anymore, because that pattern's become so ingrained. And for her with sucking the thumb, that's why people use things like gloves or something else that would be incompatible to sucking their thumb. But like I said, the reinforcement's got to be at that same level, and that's the hard thing to find with some of those habits, is because there's nothing sometimes better than a thumb. So
absolutely.
So then you get into, like, well, if she goes back to, like, a pacifier or something like that, well, that's not really age appropriate.
Right. It's retraining the brain, and it's something that's very hard to do. I even think with food, like you were talking, it's like I can't eat certain foods, so therefore you're thinking I'm starving and I need it, and your brain starts thinking a certain way, and I can only imagine where a habit like smoking and the nicotine and everything, it would just, like you said, though, if you're smoking a pack a day, just one cigarette less and kind of just work your way to that goal. We have time. We have the time to do it. So
well, and the other part of that, just for one last thing, is that you want to change that pattern somehow as well. So if you're going to interrupt that, if you always smoke outside or if you always do something else at a certain time, then that's that incompatible stuff. Do it at a different time. Do it at some other place, and see if that can kind of change your mindset.
Yeah. Okay. Well, some really great information. If people would like to talk more to you about parenting tips, how can they get a hold of you?
My number is 237-3880.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. And right now, let's